Welcome to The Feed, powered by Loblaw. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. We conceived of The Feed podcast as an opportunity to showcase thought leaders, tastemakers, innovative food and health brands, and yes, a few key Loblaw executives who are making a difference in the grocery and health industries, together helping Canadians live life well. In this episode, I sit down with Stewart Samuel, one of the top global experts in retail strategy and director of retail futures at IGD, to discuss the future of grocery retail. Recorded live inside a Real Canadian Superstore in Port Coquitlam, BC, one of IDG's top 25 global hypermarkets, we explore omnichannel strategy, AI and agentic commerce, store innovation, loyalty ecosystems, and why trust will define a competitive advantage. And while Stewart predicts e-commerce will remain under 20% of global sales even by 2040, he predicts stores will become hyper-connected hubs of data-driven engagement. Stewart, welcome to The Feed. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Michael. Yeah, thanks for making it out west and having me here on the show. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for fitting me in. I know you just got back from the UK, and I've traveled far to come out here. Not that far, actually. We're in a wonderful store, the Real Canadian Superstore here in Port Coquitlam.
And just maybe a little bit of point of interest about this store. We publish a guide every year around this time. Just came out this week, actually. Looking at the must-see stores to visit globally
around the world,
around the world, and this is one of the stores that made the top 25. So
wow,
that's the first one off your list, Michael.
No,
right? So
kidding.
I'm going to give you the rest of the list, and then you can go out and about and say, look, I've got to get around the world and tip these stores off. So it's just an amazing concept. Maybe we can get into it. A little bit later on. Beautiful hypermarket.
We'll get into it because I'm also curious. What are the criteria? How do you come up? There's so many great stores, and so I definitely want to get into that. Let's start talking about you. You and I know each other. I've known each other many, many years. I think we were talking off mic. Was it New York or Las Vegas the last time you and I saw each other? But maybe not known to everyone. So who are you and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So, Stewart Samuel. I'm Director of Retail Futures at IGD, and maybe we can sort of unpack IGD a little bit as well. But the team that I work in is an Insights and Foresights team, and essentially we look at the signals, the trends that will give us a clue of what shopping will look like over the next sort of 5 to 7 years. So we're sort of tracking innovations, initiatives, retailer strategy, some of the really cool technologies we're seeing in store, but also what's happening in other areas such as maybe health and sustainability, just to sort of help retailers and brands to plan better for what's coming down the line.
Do you focus more on grocery than other formats, or what's the organization's focus? And then what's your particular focus, if you have it within there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So at IGD, our purpose really is on uniting and inspiring everyone to deliver a thriving food system. So our focus tends to fall into grocery and drugstore retail. That's our priority area. And really what we're doing is looking at the insights, the foresights, again, giving us those signals, the clues of what's coming. And what we help then do through our consulting business is help sort of retailers and brands to think, okay, if that's what's coming, what strategy do we need to lean in to optimize against these trends? Or, sometimes those trends can work against your business model or the category you're in. What's the alternative options for us as we sort of see those trends coming down the line? And then through the learning organization that we have, we can actually then help those companies to look at the skills gaps, the capability needs, and actually help then support and develop those capabilities as well. And that one really cool thing about IGD, and I spent 20 years there, I love this organization, is that actually we're a social impact organization. So we reinvest all our profits back into the food industry. So it's about developing that thriving food system. We do a lot of work with industry around health, sustainability, resilience, economics, and developing people. So it's a pretty cool organization to be part of.
As you look at retail and you walk retail stores and you think about the physical stores and the intersection of physical and online, because we're going to talk about both. What do you look for? What is it that's? Sometimes I put it in table stakes and differentiators, but let's talk about it as non-negotiables, right? To be a modern retailer, what are those kind of key things? A modern grocer, what do you need to have that is like you've just got to do them? If you're not doing them, you're not going to be in the game.
Yeah, it's a good question. We've sort of talked about quite a lot internally, and about 2 years ago we developed a Store the Future framework. Quite a pragmatic approach. So this is less about sort of the kind of science fiction side of the store of the future. If retailers are in a particular position today, what do they need to do over the next 2 to 3 years to get to ensure they sort of stay relevant for shoppers? So there's 4 key pillars to this framework, and it's about delivering a enhanced experience for consumers, optimizing operations, delivering on value, and having a positive impact. And on that latter one, it typically tends to fall either into sustainability or health. So when we sort of go and visit stores, we have this framework, we have this benchmark, we have about 23 different levers that sit under those 4 pillars. So it's quite easy for us then to go and visit those stores and score those stores and make the assessment. Now, you asked me what the non-negotiables are. Look, it's very unlikely a retailer can pull like a 5-star on all those 23 levers. And they probably wouldn't want to, because you're going to get sort of something that maybe sort of doesn't differentiate itself in the marketplace. What we typically see is, depending on the format, maybe the retailer strategy, that they will lean into 1 or 2 of those key pillars. So if you're a discount retailer, if you're a no frills, you're really sort of focusing on optimizing the operation and delivering on value.
Right.
Somewhere else, you may be more focused on just delivering just a great, fresh food service led experience. I think what's interesting with this store that we're in today, Michael, is actually is one of those very rare stores that actually ticks all those 4 pillars. And
I was going to have you unpack that, because right back to the beginning of our conversation is like when I asked you what category you focus on. Is you walk this store, you've got everything from amazing amount of grocery, but then you've got Joe Fresh apparel, you've got beauty, you've got toys, you've got electronics. So it's not like a single category grocer focus. And then my part 2 to that question is, the first of your quadrants is experience. Well, people define their experience with the customer sometimes very differently. I want just the most frictionless experience no, I want something different. So first of all, unpack what you saw in this store that got your attention, tick those boxes.
Yeah, quite a lot in this store, actually. And, for those of you who may not be familiar, but Loblaw has been going through quite a reinvention with this hypermarket concept. Because, honestly, hypermarkets have been under a lot of pressure globally. We've seen the shift towards smaller formats. We've seen the shift to online, particularly for the non-food elements. So retailers have really had to rethink, actually, how do we ensure that the hypermarket stays relevant for shoppers, given what's happening in the external environment as well, and the different options that shoppers have today. So particularly in this store, it definitely ticks the boxes on experience. If you think about that sort of non-food side of the store, that's where really they've put a lot of investment behind it. You've got clear zoning, different color coding, just an amazing kid zone in this store.
Great wayfinding, like you can look up and you can find your way.
Great wayfinding,
everywhere.
not just in terms of like clear department signage. Look at some of the graphics they're using in the store. There's a bit more sort of retail media, so digital screens in this store than we've seen before in a typical Canadian store. Some new concepts like the sweet shop, and then putting in not where you'd expect to see it maybe next to that kids zone, but it just makes total perfect sense.
Yeah.
Elevating, when you come in through the door, what they've done on the beauty, the concierge desk, just a great sort of experience as you come through the store. And then, particularly on the food side, just opening up a lot of sightlines across the store. Again, clear navigation, clear signposting, particularly with the Loblaw No brands as well. And then, if you talk about the sort of delivering value piece, as soon as you sort of come to the front door, it talks about the ways to save in this store. So it's just showcasing shoppers, whether it's a price cut, a promotion, a loyalty, something that's linked to rewards. There's just that sense you're getting a good deal in this store. But we if we think about the other pillar, about health and wellness, you've got the pharmacy, it's elevated. You've got the natural food aisle.
You got what is it? A spec saver now. I mean, we're in the PC Financial office here recording this, but there's a number of those. Get a haircut and also get the new. I think there's a new 100 or so units of the spec saver. Get your glasses. Get the pharmacy. It's a one-stop shop, right? Yeah, and that one-stop shop has been under a lot of pressure. Particularly in sort of more developed markets, and it's just great to see the investment that's been put back into this type of store, because it's just a beautiful store to shop in, and it was an easy sort of win for it when it made our top 25 list. Now, 26. I was staying in Vancouver, so I went to the new City Market store in the Post building. What a wonderful store as well, right?
Yeah, it was a long time coming. There's a lot of work to do on that particular facility, and you may have spotted the 2 towers that they've gone in and put on top of there, but really just sort of respecting again the heritage of that building. But yeah, just a beautiful store that, very different to this, right? It's fresh, it's food led, it's definitely into that sort of quick service model, particularly around sort of food service and food to go.
I see some, when I first walked down, I saw right away, because I did the two back-to-back, similarities, like the same bunks offering the same fresh assortment. Like the entranceway was all about fresh. It had that in common, right? So it had a nice template from that perspective.
Yeah, I think in both stores, and particularly in the city market store, the thing that I've sort of noticed over the last sort of year or so is just an elevated value proposition as well. So talking more about price, round dollar pricing, which you wouldn't typically have seen within the sort of city market format previously, but just conscious that, the affordability challenge that a lot of Canadians face, they've really sort of worked hard to sort of elevate value across all their formats, not just in the, we've seen the rapid growth of No Frills and Maxi this year, but actually just sort of dialing up the sort of messaging and the proposition around low price in other formats as well.
So you kind of mentioned you had a tick list, so to speak, levers to pull, I think you described it as. When you walk into a store, what's your trade craft? You do, and you write so eloquently about your store tours. I mean, when I walk into a store, what's my first impression of the store? And then I kind of go a bit deeper and kind of look for technical things. And as you're saying, what are they calling out around price perception and that? Is that how you approach it? Do you do that first kind of, what's my step back? What's my initial assessment? What's it like? What's it like to be you?
Yeah, a lot of it is like that. So you do definitely take that first impression. What I'll do like to do is watch shoppers in store and see how other people, people who've regularly come to the store, shop that store, how they're sort of, navigating the store, where we're seeing some sort of like hotspots within that store, and just understanding actually, does the store work? Okay. And then there are some other things, a bit like, in this store, first of all, I'm seeing a lot of people picking the online orders in the store. So again, it gives you a sense of, how the store is being used. And the stores today are not just stores for shoppers, right? We've seen this evolution of the omnichannel model, and stores are now just central to that, and they are, they are the fulfillment hub for e-commerce as well. So just looking at, how else the store is being sort of functioned as well.
How do you guys think about innovation? And separate, and I guess it's continuing of our discussion around table stakes or differentiators, and there's price perception, and there's the kind of things that need to be prevalent. So how do you see retailers stepping back and thinking about innovation as they execute it, keeping in mind all the things that need to also happen at the same time? What are the key drivers, and what do you see as best practices?
Yeah, there's two things here, really. When we talk about innovation, a lot of people just automatically switch to technology. And that is a key part of it, but it's not just the only innovation that's happening in food retail, but it's a big part of it. So first of all, it's important to separate what's the tech-led innovation and what's maybe, process-led innovation. It may be layout innovation. It may be range innovation. So we try to sort of take a broad look at innovation. I think what's interesting over the last few years is we've seen a much more sort of focus on the ROI of innovation. If we go back pre-COVID, and particularly maybe 10 years ago, Michael, 2015, we saw retailers throw a lot at stores. A lot of testing, a lot of piloting, and straight away a lot of it clearly didn't make sense. But there was sometimes it's signaling to analysts that we're doing something. Sometimes it is that test and learn, which is really important. I think what we've seen sort of post-COVID is that retailers are much more sort of focused on the ROI, and that each innovation almost has to stand on its own legs within the store, and just a more sort of focus on getting those proof points, the case studies, and really sort of being, I think, choiceful, if you like, before sort of scaling and then rolling out those innovations as well.
You've been doing this 20 years. Talk about the impact of COVID in terms of, not the impact during the COVID era itself, but it feels to me like retailers in general are much more agile and nimble than they were pre-COVID as one result. I mean, we saw a consumer impact that I think continues. It broke some habits, right? And I've been also talking about this in the context of Canada, the Buy Canadian movement. However this lasts or however strong it is, it breaks existing habits. I was trying this, now I've tried something different, and I have my own example of, whiskey, right? I used to drink American whiskey. I tried Canadian whiskey, loved it. I'm not sure I would have tried that without, that kind of impetus. So, two-part question, do you find retailers better operators since COVID, learned a few things, and then the consumer impact of breaking long-form existing habits?
I think for me, the one area that we've looked at pretty closely is e-commerce. It's no surprise we did see that huge jump in e-com and digital penetration during the pandemic, and those growth rates have definitely eased since then. But there was a bit of a step change, particularly in Canada, in some of the other developed markets, and retailers really had to sort of figure out pretty quickly what was the right e-com model for them. And prior to that, we saw a lot of testing. We saw automated fulfillment in stores, automated fulfillment to the side of stores. What we're seeing now is that retailers are kind of settling in on, I think we sort of understand what the right model is. It's typically, it can be picked from a centralized fulfillment, but most retailers are gravitating towards picking at store. Sometimes it's automated, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's delivery by the store, but increasingly it's third-party partnerships. So I think retailers have sort of spent a lot of time just to try and sort of understand what's the right model, and that right model can vary even within the same format. So maybe here in Coquitlam they're doing it in one way, in another superstore in another town, actually third-party delivery, third-party picking might be the right model.
I guess density works too, right? How, where you are, where the store is, the density. I mean, these automated models, for example, they need a lot of volume to put through to make it make sense, right?
Yeah, density and the type of sort of catchment makes a big difference. So volume is absolutely 100% essential for those centralized fulfillment models. Yeah. But if your consumer is more about eat now, eat tonight, you need that immediacy of delivery as well, which sometimes those centralized fulfillment models are not the best model for. It's about having those partnerships with the Uber Eats, the Instacart, the DoorDashes of this world. And if we look at sort of most, the growth rates of the e-commerce, grocery e-commerce in Canada from individual retailers over the last year and a half, some of them have been hitting plus 60, plus 70, plus 80% growth, and most of that is coming from those third-party partnerships. So it's understanding where is the consumer going as well. Is it the big pre-planned weekly shop, which really does suit those large fulfillment centers, or are people still shopping and shopping? If you're like my family, Michael, we'll figure out about 3:00 today what we're having for dinner tonight. And I don't think I'm alone in that way. So I think sort of that's why we're seeing the strength of these third-party partnerships take off. So I think sort of the COVID pandemic, we did see that huge acceleration of digital sales during the pandemic. Okay, the growth has tapered off, but retailers are in a sort of, the penetration is higher.
Yeah, I think you described it as a step change.
A step change, and so they've had to figure out pretty quickly what's the right model for them, just to get, because it's challenging, right? When you sort of, picking an order for a consumer, maybe delivering that order on a relatively low delivery charge is challenging to margins. So again, we may get into it, but on the flip side, we're also seeing the growth of retail media as well, which is helping to sort of underpin some of the profitability of that e-commerce model as well.
It's interesting because, as I think of omnichannel, it's almost a distinction without a difference. In other words, they each have their operating metrics, but it's really all about how the customer wants to shop. Oftentimes shop in store, shop online, and it depends on how what their day is like, right? Maybe it's too late to go shop online. I'm just going to pop in the store and pick something up, right?
Yeah, it's shopping, right?
Right.
We get so hung up on these definitions within the industry, and whether it's multi-channel, omnichannel, increasingly we talk about unified commerce. If you're a consumer, you're just shopping. You just shop that brand. So it doesn't really sort of make a lot of sense to a customer if you talk about omnichannel, but they just want to come and have the options. I think it's back to the sort of being sort of providing optionality for shoppers, as you say. Do you want to stop in on the store on the way home?
Right.
Do you want to sort of have it delivered tonight? A lot of people, particularly around Christmas, they know they have family coming for that Christmas lunch. They can do the big order. They know what they need. So those big sort of moments, home delivery for a large order kind of works. If you just sort of spontaneously, hey, friends are inviting you over, you don't even have time to put the 2-hour order in. You need to get into that store and pick something up on the way home.
Right on. One thing that surprised me, maybe not as much as it used to, but I didn't think the intersection of speed would be as quite important overall in e-commerce and in all these things, because I thought it comes with a cost to both the retailer and it comes to the cost to the consumer, right? It's obviously a premium. But retailers are telling me Loblaw is telling me, that speed matters. And, one of the reasons they pull from the store is, as you say, that's an optimum model. Does anything about that surprise you, that consumers may or may not need it right away, but they like the speed? I don't know if that's going to turn itself around anytime soon.
Speed is definitely important. I think the main change we've seen is a bit of a dial back on speed to an extent. So, again, go back pre-COVID, a lot of retailers were testing 30-minute, even 20-minute delivery. If you're delivering an order in 20 minutes, that gives you about 6 minutes to pick an order.
Right.
Really, absolutely, impossible for more than a few items. And then suddenly, the economics of the basket are being challenged because you need more items, more higher value. The different mix of items in that basket to make it profitable. So the industry seems to have settled that 2 hours is a fairly good deal for both the retailer and the consumer, particularly if you're using those third-party delivery partnerships. But I don't think we're moving away from I'll go online and make an order, particularly outside the food space, and if I'm maybe ordering something for non-food, and they'll tell me you can have it in 2 days. I'm like, are you crazy? but you go back 5-6 years ago.
Well, I was going to say
2 days would have been amazing.
Shipping and handling 6 weeks. You'll get it in 6 weeks.
Exactly, and you would have been pretty happy with that.
Maybe 4 to 6 weeks. Never 4 weeks. But
so expectations continue to shift, and you do have those leaders, those innovators who continue to sort of push on some of these sort of metrics. But I think back to this point around innovation, and retailers are much more sort of dialed in now to sort of a more pragmatic and a profitable solution as well.
Right. Let's talk about format innovation again, and small format versus large format. So I guess we would say that innovation doesn't necessarily have to happen on a big scale, that you cross the world, you might see it in a very, very smaller scale. Do you see a different way that the smaller formats approach innovation and how they deal with their customer?
When we look at smaller formats, quite often they're the independent stores that are running a lot of those smaller formats, and it is interesting when you get into sort of those stores that they are agile, they are able to sort of do things, they're able to test, they're able to partner quite quickly with different firms. So in a lot of the technology companies we talk to, they want to they really want to scale their solutions. They think they have a great solution. Quite often they will go to those independent sectors to test and pilot those innovations because they can very quickly get into 2 or 3 stores, get a bit of market feedback. Does it work? If it's an internal colleague-facing solution, they can get sort of really sort of hands-on feedback from the people in the store. So the innovation can happen both in the smaller format or the smaller retailers, the large multinational retailers as well. But it can happen at a much quicker pace in those smaller retailers. The challenge you then have is that often they don't have the viable scale for some of those, particularly say like a technology partner, to roll out on a large basis. But they're definitely sort of great testing ground for a lot of these solutions. And those independent sectors, they really welcome that because they don't have the same resources as a large company to do a lot of this stuff internally as well. So you will see them relying a lot more on partnerships to do a lot of that innovation.
We've been talking for now over 20 minutes. We haven't said AI yet. So let's talk about AI and technology. So it probably deserves a few minutes getting your thoughts on, when we talk to retailers, certainly, I know that the folks at Loblaws are very intensely working on AI from a productivity perspective and from probably a lot of different perspectives, supply chain. What are you seeing, and do you think it is the force that do you think there's a there? Do you think it's the force for change that many think it is, or are you a little skeptical that it's a bit overhyped?
No, I'm definitely on the forceful side of AI. We're seeing some sort of really sort of great results from some of the early work that was done, particularly around supply chain, demand planning, forecasting, where a lot of retailers start, pricing optimization, promotional planning, just really great results from just the sort of early days of AI. Like we're way beyond that now. If we think about generative AI, that came onto the scene 2.5 years ago. Our new piece of research that's just coming out this month is around agentic AI and how that's going to sort of cut across the path to purchase. So we're seeing we expect to see a pretty dramatic impact from both Gen AI and agentic AI in the grocery store environment.
Say more about that. So I know that more consumers in Canada, Leger says 47 or 55% are using AI. They're probably 100% because if you're using some of the platforms, it's baked in.
Yes.
So again, one of those distinctions. But how do you see it change in the path to purchase? Is it I'm going to a different place to start the journey, or I'm doing more research? Not like people don't research today, not like they don't go online. They see flyers and print or online. What is that agentic difference?
I think if we take a step back first, we just think about Gen AI. So we think about a platform like ChatGPT, which now has the buy button enabled within that platform. Now, I think we have to make a distinction between food and non-food, because I think a lot of this is going to start and happen in the non-food space, where you are just typically buying one or two items, and probably for most consumers is one item at a time. It gets a bit more complex when you're thinking about a basket of goods that a grocery retailer typically sells. But if you just step back and think about something like a ChatGPT that has the buy button enabled, you're bypassing the retailer's website almost entirely. Now, that has lots of implications, particularly down the line, if you think about where a lot of retailers are making their money today, which is through retail media and monetizing their digital assets. If you're suddenly sort of not sending consumers, or consumers are not heading towards that digital asset, the advertisers are going to start putting their money elsewhere, which, we're already seeing some advertising sort of start I guess leak into some of those generative AI platforms. So that's the sort of first thing. If then think about agentic AI, so Gen AI typically gives you better answers, right? Agentic AI will take the decisions for you. So, some consumers are already starting to sort of play around with this. So typically with some of the AI, the early AI tools, you'd be doing some price monitoring. So maybe there's a sweater you like, Michael, and you just you have your eye on it, and you think, okay, let me know, through the website, let me know when that sweater drops to a price that you want, that you're willing to pay for that sweater, for example, and you'll get the notification, and then you can make that decision. Yeah, I still like the sweater. I think it's a good deal. I'll go buy that. So with Agentic AI, the difference is it'll buy it for you. You've already given it the permission. So you said, yeah, watch for this price. When that price drops, do it. And then you'll have that agent, that Agentic AI agent, making that decision. What you may then have is that Agentic AI agent talking to a third-party delivery AI agent and booking a delivery slot for you.
You need a synthetic org chart or something.
And bring it to your home as well. So I think we're going to see...
Is this science fiction? I mean, what you're talking to just blows my mind sometimes. These agents talking to each other, and it's like them being inside the Matrix or something. Is this... is this the world of possible, or this is the world of soon?
I think more the world of possible. It's going to be, we've talked about...
It's probably an edge case right now.
There's some edge cases there. Yeah. We've talked to some branded manufacturers as part of this research that we're doing, and for most of them, they're a long way away from this. They're still actually they've figured out, most have figured out AI, and they're optimizing a lot of things around internal stuff, marketing, pricing.
It reminds me of the enthusiasm we all had, or degrees we had, of voice commerce, v-commerce, right? And I still, wind up screaming into these voice agents because I don't think I have a big accent, but they don't seem to...
You struggle and I struggle, Michael.
They don't seem to get half of what I say right, and it's been a long, long time. So I guess I'm a little skeptical about it, the actual implication. But you see it, you're on the front lines. What's your degree of... I was going to say, what's your degree of confidence, but maybe it's more fun to ask you, what's your degree of skepticism that this is something that's going to happen in the next, 5 years that will really transform retail, or will it just be on the fringes?
I'm pretty confident in the non-food sector that it's going to transform in the next 5 years. I think for food retail, it could be a little bit longer than that, just because we have this complexity of basket issue. On voice commerce, I think we're going to see major improvements in the year ahead. On voice commerce.
I hope.
I think we're just sort of... the tools are pretty good right now. Yeah, I struggle with it. It doesn't get my mangled Welsh North American accent at times, and I'm like you. I'm yelling at it at some points. But yeah, some of the work that's happened this year, I think we'll start to see really sort of big improvements in voice commerce. But we have had those hype cycles, Michael. Dare I mention the metaverse?
Please,
that's the classic example.
That was a gimme, though. That was like almost a gimme.
Easy. Yeah.
We knew this wasn't going to work. We're going to talk about it. Gave people like you and me the chance to kind of bat it down real quick.
It was fun. We did. I think we did bat that one down pretty quickly. But I think on the agentic AI piece, a lot of particularly the manufacturers we spoke to with this new research, they're a long way from that, but it's on their radar. They're still sort of figuring out the Gen AI piece and making that sort of work and deliver ROI for them internally. But they've definitely got, at least some of the larger multinational manufacturers definitely have a roadmap around agentic AI as well.
All right. Last couple of questions, then we're going to do a rapid fire kind of question. So you and I are having this discussion in 10 years here at this store or another great store. What's the same, and what would you recognize the store? What's different, and how do you think in 10 years, what we see here is going to be a different experience for a consumer?
Yeah, 10 years is a long time, Michael.
Right.
Yeah, if you think back 2015, we like to backcast quite a bit as part of our futures work at IGD, and actually a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same since 2015.
Sure.
But if we think forward, I think the one piece for us is we kind of have this vision of the store of the future that's rooted in what we call the hyper-connected store.
Okay.
So it's all about a data-driven experience, and we think about it from three sort of key buckets. Really, what does that sort of data do in terms of the colleague experience in the store, the workflow, how they sort of do their work, how they're sort of engaged and driven, sort of particularly with a sort of more of a task-driven approach, but also trying to create more engaging work for store associates as well.
So basically free, and I've heard this from retailers, and it's a similar discussion as self-checkout. Let's free up more associates to do more value-added work in the store. And that sounds like what you're talking about as well. Yeah,
right? That's a big piece of it. The other piece where we see sort of technology is around optimizing the operational. So maybe that's where we're sort of freeing up some of the labor. To sort of make the store efficient. And then you have tech for customer engagement as well. So we expect to see sort of more technology in those three key areas, but then more sort of, I guess, less siloed technology between those three areas. Actually starting to see some of those technology pieces come together and, sort of, I don't want to sort of get into cliche, but unified by data.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're actually getting a lot of data being generated in the store, but then that data is being used and being sort of, you'll have the AI, you'll have the agentic agents, and, we talked a lot about agentic AI in the digital environment. Actually, what you're going to see is agentic AI in the physical environment.
In 10 years. Yeah, that's a great call.
So suddenly, sort of, you may be sort of shopping in a store with an app. You make a certain decision to put in, you may scan an item, put it in your basket. Suddenly, you're getting sort of rerouted to another part of the store in real time by that agentic agent. So I told you I was a fan.
You're a futurist.
A fan of this stuff. But yeah, I think, if we do fast forward sort of to 2035.
2035,
I had to think then. We will see a much more sort of tech-enabled store, but it won't be tech for the sake of tech. It'll be tech that's
I hope it's tech for the relevant.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same word when I was working on these projects. It's like, how do we put the right offer in front of the right person at the right time and do that at scale in a store like this?
I think the other piece, and we didn't sort of get into it too much today, is around the health dimension that sits alongside this, because I think sort of with health, that's where you're really going to get the personalization that actually is relevant for shoppers.
Right.
If you can sort of...
You got a health issue, you want to buy foods that are low sodium or whatever, and we're going to kind of point you in the right direction. Is that what you're thinking?
I think more than point you, it's going to sort of navigate you. It's going to sort of give you the relevance of buying those products. It's going to be able to sort of really tell you if you're getting the right mix of vitamins or different sort of health components, and sort of analyze your diet, and then maybe when you log on to the next time that you've made all your purchases, you log onto your website. Your website is tailored to you based on your health preferences, your dietary needs, your diagnostic testing. But we're a long way from that. So you have all issues around sort of trust and data and privacy.
Yeah.
But as a food retailer, if you can get a consumer to trust you with their health, you're going to be in a really, really good place.
Yeah.
And again, maybe we didn't get into today, but I think trust is going to be a big differentiator for shoppers going forward as well, particularly in an AI world where it's increasingly...
Who do you trust? Yeah,
it's increasingly difficult to know what's real and what's fake.
I worry. I both worry about that as I see some of these created videos that you got to look twice, and then it gives me confidence that a retailer like Loblaw has. I don't know what I see online if I can believe it or not, but I know what I see here, and I know the people I talk to. That trust element, I think, is just going to be a superpower.
I 100% agree. It's one of the big things we're watching within our futures team is actually how do retailers articulate and bring that trust element, not just trust in the physical environment, but that you can be trusted, you can, as a retailer, that consumers will trust you, first of all, with their data, with their privacy, the safeguarding, but then actually will trust them with your spend as well, that you're working as hard as you can to deliver the best value, the best experience for the consumer.
Right on. All right, let's get to a rapid fire range. Now, you're a futurist, so some of these are going to be future oriented, but one technology that is completely overhyped.
I don't think there's one technology that's overhyped right now. Sorry, I'm going to head in a different direction. But I think what's overhyped is that there is a technology out there that's a silver bullet. I think that's the sort of thing that gets hyped up a lot, that actually there is one technology that's going to come and save and change the direction of food retail. And I don't think that's true.
There's many things going to have to work together.
Exactly.
Well, in the same vein, what's one technology that is underappreciated by the sector that you think that you should pay more attention to?
I think it's the workforce automation, the scheduling, the stuff that the consumers don't see, the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. I think we still have a challenge on labor availability in the retail sector. We still have a challenge about making retail a really sort of exciting a destination, a place that people actually are actively choosing as a career. With you're in the industry. We know there's great opportunities in this world, but actually we have to make sure that work, particularly the sort of the routine, methodical work that happens, from shelf stacking to checking, all that kind of stuff that has to happen to ensure that we get a great store like this. That work becomes really super engaging, and I think technology is going to play. We already see the elements with some gamification and some sort of fun thing that's happening in some of those workforce apps.
Since you're a futurist, 2035, let's go to 2040. What percentage of groceries will be sold online versus in-store?
Online, I think online will still be sub 20%.
I guess we should unpack that. So online, whether it's picked up in store or delivered to home, but you went online, did the transaction. Maybe you came to the store to get it. So you would say about 20. You think about 20%?
At the most, yeah. Our data for sort of 2030 takes us out to about 92% stays in store, and then I think it's a slow climb.
It's funny that the perception of people when I ask them. I always ask them, what percentage of stuff do you think is sold online? I get numbers as high as 50%, like today, and I'm like, it's probably 12 to 14%, and they're shocked. It's interesting. It has a bigger space in the mind than it does. People just still love to shop, right?
Yeah, and it's grocery has one of the lowest penetrations. So we know in non-food it can be as high as as that sort of 20%.
In a category, it can be much higher, but in general, right?
Yeah, in general, and in food retail, I think we'll get to globally 8% online by 2030. But we still have a lot of markets where there's a lot of traditional trade, particularly in Asia. So if when you sort of add all those elements in as well, if you just take sort of developed markets, it's going to be a lot higher. But I think even 2040, I think it was still going to be 20% max, I would say.
All right. You mentioned that sometimes you shop at the last minute, pull the dinners together pretty quickly. But when you walk the grocery store, where am I most likely to find you? Are you in the fresh area? Are you in the frozen area? What's your favorite part of any grocery store?
If you'd been here this morning, Michael, I was in the store just a little bit before you. You'd have found me in the World Foods aisle. I love to have a look down that aisle. I find it sort of fascinating. I think sort of Canada again is just its diversity. Canada leads in a lot of places, but in terms of multicultural ranging and store formats, it leads the world, and it's the one market that we continually talk to other retailers about if you want to see the future of multicultural retail, come to Canada, and I think it's fascinating.
That's a great testament. Where do you go? I'm sure you listen to your colleagues. You have a great group of colleagues that you probably learn a lot from. I'm sure it'd be great to be you. I could just think of all those people thinking about big thoughts. But where else do you go to learn and keep up with the industry and keep up with consumers and how do you keep up, I guess?
One of the things we've done in our futures team, we're a fairly new team within IGD, just the last couple of years. We start to look now more at other sectors as well. So we're really super interested in things like the hotel industry, particularly for loyalty programs, because we think hotels have been leading in the loyalty space for a long time. We like to look at the financial industry, banking, particularly commercial and personal banking, because again, if as an industry has been disrupted and you've seen a lot of digitization at an early stage and at a fast pace, the banking industry. We're super interested in transportation, travel, the car industry, what's happening with EV vehicles, and the shift that's going to come there, and this whole sort of, if you want to talk about sort of digital ecosystems, if you think about sort of, when you'll have cars talking to traffic signals, talking to road sensors, that's like a bit of a path forward. So we love to look beyond food retail for some of the inspiration about what could come into retail.
Oh, interesting. Kind of a distant learning thing. Well, Stewart, it's been such a treat catching up with you personally, and also thank you so much for your contributions to the feeds. Great insights, and you're one of the world-leading experts on this sector, so the opportunity to chat with you here in a grocery store is I couldn't miss the opportunity. So if people want to get a hold of you, learn more about your work or IGD, where do they go?
Yeah, IGD.com, and get hold of us there. Great.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks again for joining me on the feed. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, be sure and follow us and give us a 5-star review in your favorite podcast app, and tell your friends and colleagues all about us. New episodes of the feed powered by Loblaw will show up regularly on your favorite podcast app and on our YouTube page, where you can watch the full video of each episode at the feed powered by Loblaw. I'm Michael LeBlanc, consumer retail growth consultant, keynote speaker and producer, and host of a series of retail trade podcasts. You can learn more about me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.